keynote speaker this morning. He's going to bring us a very inspirational message, and looking forward to hearing him. Professor Dr. Bruce Firestone is best known as an entrepreneur and founder of the NHL hockey team, the Ottawa Senators, their home arena, the Canadian Tire Centre, and the Ottawa Senators Foundation, a children's charity. I'm not going to read his whole bio because we're here to hear him, not me talk about him. He's got tremendous credentials. He's a true Canadian hero and a legend for what he's done with the Ottawa Senators in a time when we were losing hockey teams in two cities, and in Winnipeg and in Quebec City. He's launched or helped launch more than 300 startups in many, many fields. He's been a professor at several different universities in Canada and around the world. He's a professional engineer, experience in conducting environmental assessments, all kinds of things. He's just a true entrepreneur, and it's my pleasure to welcome Professor Bruce M. Firestone.
Thank you, Larry. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. All right. It's great to be back at Thunder Bay. It's been a while since I've been here, but Northwestern Ontario, the smaller communities in Ontario, not just here, but in Eastern Ontario, where I'm from, are fantastic and have incredible potential, and we're going to talk about that. But before we do that, and I am going to talk, Larry, about the Senators, well, the family that they but before I do that, I want to talk about some of the challenges that we're facing. Kristen, can we turn off this microphone here? Thank you. I think that's a little better. Be less of an echo. So I want to talk about some of the challenges that we're facing in economic development in small communities across Ontario, in fact, around the world. And this is the fact that we're seeing an unprecedented change in demographics. I said, what is life in 2050 going to look like? And when I thought about that a little bit, I put up this, really dark image because, if you're 60 today, I'm 62, if you're 60 today, in 2050, many of those 60-year-olds will still be alive. They'll be 96 years of age. What's the fastest growing demographic in Canada? Anyone know?
100 plus.
100 plus. It's not the baby boomers, my generation, it's 100 plus. So you look at a 60-year-old today, somebody like me, women and men, many of them will be alive in 2050. What does that mean? It means you will see a parade of hearses in your town, in your city, in your county. That's what it's going to look like in 2050. All right. So we face unbelievable challenges in the community that I'm from, in Ottawa. I did this bar chart for you. There's 103,000 seniors living in Ottawa, 103,000 today, or 2012, excuse me. In 2032, not 2050, 2032, just 20 years from that date, there'll be 232,000 seniors living in Ottawa. 232,000. The population is aging incredibly fast in Italy, in Canada, in Russia, in Japan, and in all of your communities. It's a huge challenge for all of us. Many of our main streets, certainly in Eastern Ontario, look like this, half empty. And where they are empty, we're filling them or backfilling them with pawn shops and girly clubs and places that, you and I might not think was the right kind of urban development and city development and town development we want to see. What is our most important resource? You all know that. I talked to one of your mayors here a few minutes ago. He said human capital, human capital. He's right. And where are all our teenagers and 20-somethings going? They're going to techopolises, megapolises, megacities. I pulled this off a headline for The Guardian. Tech startups flocking to megacities. And you know what the definition of a megacity is? 10 million plus. We don't have a single megacity in Canada. We're losing our young people to these cities. And they talk about, if you listen to Richard Florida, they talk about attracting the creative class and high bohemians. I don't even know what a high bohemian is other than maybe a bohemian who's high. And they talk about amping up your urban metabolism. What does that mean? Collisionable hours. These are just buzzwords. Now, some of you may not think, may know what this is. This is not what it looks like. It's about Dell Hell. When you buy a Dell computer, they never want to hear from you again. So you're now in Dell Hell. Okay. So in Ottawa, we had this great idea 10 years ago, economic development in our city, my city, was let's attract industry to our city. And a lot of Northern Ontario, Northwestern Ontario towns are thinking the same. Let's get some big company out of the United States or out of Italy or out of Scandinavia to come here and give us jobs. I'm here to tell you that's not the way forward. We did that in Ottawa. Terry Matthews, who started Mitel and Newbridge and many other companies, he's a tech wizard. He's also a real estate guy. He developed Canada Research Park, one of the major research parks in Ottawa, and he attracted Dell, along with what was called OAKRI, Ottawa Center for Research and Innovation, Dell to come to Ottawa, and they built 2 brand new, shiny towers, huge towers, filled them with Dell people, and guess what? When times changed 2 years later, what did Dell do? Help me out here. They moved. So we have 2 brand new, brilliant office buildings in Canada, west end of Ottawa, empty. So what should we do? We should give up, right? No. Not one person in this room is going to do that. This morning I was reading the Chronicle Journal. Did you? How many of you looked at it this morning? Hands up. Some of you. Did you notice the story on the front page? This is Bill Morrow. I don't know if you can see that. This is Bill Morrow, Natural Resources Minister, announcing a incredibly important, groundbreaking change that will have profound implications for Thunder Bay in this area. What did he say? You read it? 6 stories. Timber frame buildings will now be allowed to be 6 stories. This is going to be a huge change to the Ontario Building Code. It means that you guys in Northern Ontario and Northwestern Ontario are going to have a great opportunity to educate people throughout Ontario. You now have an opportunity to build 5 and 6 stories building out of timber frame, about 30% less expensive than construction with concrete. So this is Bruce Lazenby. This handsome man is Bruce Lazenby. He's now the head of the rebranded OAKRI, which we call Invest Ottawa. And Bruce said, no more Dells for Ottawa. Our job now, our only job, is to attract entrepreneurs to live in our communities and to keep the entrepreneurs that we have in our community, and to support them. I did some work last year in Sweden, and everywhere I went in Stockholm, women between the ages of 18 and 45 either had a baby, were having a baby, were thinking about having a baby. And Swedish birth rate has doubled in the last 10 years, doubled. Why? Because the Swedish government has decided to allow every Swedish woman to spend a year at home on full pay after the birth of her daughter or her son. And even better, for their partners, you get to stay at home on full pay for a year with her and raise that child. It costs Sweden about 100,000 euros to produce one new child. They're investing 100,000 euros, and they have an estimate that in her lifetime or his lifetime, this child is worth about 3 million euros. Would you invest 100,000 euros to get 3 million euros? Probably every one of us in the room would do that. Sweden has made that choice. Okay, now we have to keep these people in our communities. These are our most valuable resources, our human capital. Who said that to me? Put up your hand. Where's the mayor? There's our mayor. Thank you for that. I want you to, at the end of my little presentation today, I want you to understand entrepreneurs better. I want you to make sure that the entrepreneurs who are already in your community are comfortable there and that you're supporting them. And how are you going to do that? Well, the first thing you have to do is listen to me. And then I'm going to tell you that all of us are thinking, wouldn't it be nice if the Premier of the province of Ontario came to each one of our communities and sprinkled $10 million on each of us and say, here, go do some economic development. We cannot rely on senior levels of government to come and rescue us. We have to do things that will help. Self-help is what I'm talking about. We need programs that work, but we need low-cost programs that work so that even the smallest municipality, county, township, what have you, can do it. We need family-friendly policies. We need to create sustainable economic development, so no more Dells. And it's up to you, the people in this room. You have to teach, preach, and lead. I do a lot of work in McNabb-Braeside. This is a little township of about 8,000 people, northwest of Ottawa, northwest of Arnprior, south of Renfrew and Eganville. And they were talking about all their differentiators. They're the playground of the north. They have an incredible Scottish culture there. They have a fabulous lifestyle option for boomers. They have low-cost housing options. I'll talk more about that in a minute. And they really do want to facilitate the entrepreneurs that are already there. However, that's not what makes McNabb-Braeside different. That's not their key differentiator. Their key differentiation is their council and their mayor are proactive. They are the most proactive council or mayor in Eastern Ontario, in my opinion. Remember this guy? Yeah. Did any of you hear him do his Canada #1 speech? Come on, put up your hands if you heard it. He made that speech 500 times in his first 2 years in office, right? When I talk about leadership and preaching and teaching, that is all of you. Because if you don't keep the faith, if you don't believe, nobody in your community is going to stay. You tell the last person to turn out the lights because there's going to be nobody there. You're the leaders, you set the tone. And Mr. Chrétien faced the most dire situation, economic situation Canada has faced in the Second World War. We had a $42 billion national deficit, and the IMF warned Canada we were 18 months away from bankruptcy. We were going to be administered by the IMF, and he became Prime Minister. And he went across this country in 94 and 95, and I'm not a liberal, I'm not a conservative, I'm not here to preach politics. I'm here to tell you that he went across Canada, made that Canada #1 speech, and you got people believing, hey, maybe things aren't so bad. That's really, really crucial. So what are we doing at McNabb-Braeside? They're building a new village center, mixed use, recreation, entertainment, housing, whatever, they call it the hub. They're doing a P3 project. I'm a huge believer in P3 projects, having done some myself. Bell Sansplex is a P3 project for a four-pad arena complex in Ottawa. I think I might have stolen that from the Bell Sansplex. That was done as a partnership between Ottawa and the Ottawa Senators. And they want to stop exporting $300,000 a year to a neighboring municipality. They're doing some other things. Now, every one of your zoning and official plans and your urban planners are going to tell you, we can't do this. They can say, well, we're going to do it. We're going to bring back an old style of development where an entrepreneur can come to McNabb-Braeside and buy a 4-acre site and build his or her a workshop or kitchen cabinet manufacturing, whatever, and build a house in front. Because for 250 to 300 years, Canadians have been doing that kind of development. You go down any road in any one of your towns, and you will see that. But they're not legal anymore. Because you can't mix housing and industry, right? We all hear that. And yet entrepreneurs in our area, and probably your area too, want to own their own buildings. And many of them want to live next door. So they're going to bring a subdivision similar to this that will allow people to do that. McNabb-Braeside is twinning with 2 Florida communities, trailer parks. Now everybody, it's not trailer park boys, right? It's trailer parks. And McNabb-Braeside has a very strong trailer park community down in White Lake and other places. They're going to do a huge expansion, 3,000 new sites in the next 7 years. 3,000 new sites, twinned with Florida, so you can live 6 months a year in Ontario, 6 months a year in Florida. Ontario's a paradise for 6 months. Friends of mine, 2 retired teachers, she's 68, he's 71, just sold their $600,000 Canada, that's West End Ottawa home, for $600,000, right? They bought a double wide in McNabb-Braeside for $100,000, and they bought a similar one in Florida, a very nice community there for $110,000, and put almost $400,000 of tax-free money in their account. They're currently living for $500 a month, right? That's not a bad solution. McNabb-Braeside is going to do 3,000 new sites. Here's something that I think is original and new. In 2013, my company, we went and we toured all of McNabb-Braeside. We went to, they had, I think, 18 municipal parks, and we went to see every one of them. We visited them all. Beautiful, beautiful parks, ball diamonds, soccer pitches, you name it. They have 18 of them. In a small township of 8,000 people, 18 of them. And as I went from one to the other, I started to take pictures with my iPhone. I said, what is the matter? This must be like The Walking Dead have come and eaten everybody because there's nobody there. The most beautiful, sunny summer day in July. I didn't see one kid throwing a football, pitching a baseball, kicking a soccer ball. Not one. Completely empty on a beautiful Saturday and Sunday. So what McNabb-Braeside has decided to do is they're going to surround their parks. They're going to take some of their land all around the edges of the park, and they're going to do a new program called Eyes on the Park, where they're going to create 1-acre lots all around these parks and allow people to lease those on 65-year leases. You kind of go, why would you do that? Because when you bring people to live next to a park, guess what happens to the use of the park? It goes up. guess what happens to security? If you're there, you know, if you're a young woman with a couple of children and there are people looking and overlooking the park, it's a little safer, right? We know that. And safety is important. But even better for McNabb Braeside, they're going to do, I think it was 300 of these sites. Something like that, maybe it was 200, I don't remember, but it's a new revenue stream of $30,000 to $40,000 a month for McNabb Braeside. That's a lot of money for a small township. They also have a number of developers. They're attracting developers who are coming to live in their community. This is the Madawaska River, which I think is the second cleanest river in Ottawa. This is Burnstown, and they're doing a new subdivision right next door. That is by attracting a developer, an entrepreneur, a woman entrepreneur to come and do something in their township. A new cottage park is going on. Something else, these tools that these young people have created, all of this social media that you hear about. I'm on Twitter. How many of you guys are on Twitter? Okay, @ProfBruce, that's me. Follow me, I'll follow you back. These tools are free. McNabb Braeside is getting every one of their businesses, they have about 250 to 300 businesses, to go and get a free Google Plus page. Why do you do that? Because you can then register your business location on Google Maps. And Google will actually send you a postcard in the snail mail, right, with an authorization code that you put in to say, yes, you really are at that address. And every McNabb Braeside business will show up on Google Maps because people are frankly not using yellow pages anymore. They're doing this kind of thing. The other thing that I have to talk about today is you have to build your brand. You're going to say to me, oh my God, Firestone's here to tell us to build a brand. Everybody talks about marketing. Everybody talks about building a brand. But you can build your brand like Sweden does. As I said, I was teaching in Sweden. Sweden has a Twitter account that they allow individual Swedes to apply to curate that account, that Twitter account, 1 week a year. So 52 Swedes are picked to curate. So I can, if I was a Swedish person, I could apply, I could be picked, and I could curate all of Sweden for a week. And everybody in Sweden can see what interests me. So building a brand today is not necessarily about spending a lot of money. It's about building trust. And why is it important? Again, going back to my Swedish experience, when I was teaching 62 students, I asked them, first day, get your laptops out, we're going to do some internet surfing. So 62 young people, all very nice, obedient Swedes, got their laptops out. Out of 62 laptops, 61 were MacBook Pros. 61 out of 62 were Apple computers. Now this generation tells you they're not influenced by brands, they're not influenced by advertising. That is hogwash. This is the most brand conscious generation ever. So if you want to keep those young people in your community and you want them to come back, you have to be cool. Marketing has changed completely. And I pinpoint that to 9:50 p.m. on the first day of spring in 2006, when Jack Dorsey, that's a picture of Jack here, one of the founders, two founders of Twitter, when he sent out the first ever tweet. Everything changed. Before that, maybe you had a website and you did some mainstream media, maybe you did brand building through television or radio advertising, you might have been in a magazine. But after that, everything changed. I love this definition of what new marketing is. New marketing is any marketing tactic, that relies on earning people's interest instead of buying it. Earning their interest, earning their belief instead of buying it. And these young people, these fantastic young people who've developed Google Plus, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, Tumblr, Airbnb, Pinterest, Kijiji, etc. These young people have given us these tools to use, and they're abundantly free. Think about McNabb Braeside. They go to every business, they talk to every businessman and woman in McNabb Braeside. You are going to get on Google+. So what I'm saying to you is, yes, you're going to lose your kids and your young people to these mega cities. You're going to lose them to urban. But there's going to come a point in their lives, sooner than maybe you think, when they're like me. They have a wife they adore and 5 beautiful kids that they love. And, you know, frankly, living above a pub on Elgin Street in Ottawa is not cool anymore, right? They're going to come back to Thunder Bay and to all your communities, many of them will. This is a friend of mine. His name is Eric Kuhn. He's one of the world's leading architects. And I was doing some work in Greece and in Crete, and on my way back I went to visit my oldest daughter who's in London, and he's London-based. And I went to visit Eric, and you know, listening to Eric and talking to Eric, you have to understand that you have to parse every word because he's so brilliant. Half the time I have no idea what he said. Right? I went to McGill University a long time ago in the 1970s, and I had a chance to listen to Marshall McLuhan. And he gave a lecture, and he talked about the global village, right? And he talked about connectedness, and he talked about the internet before anybody knew. Certainly I didn't know anything about the internet. And so we had no idea what he's talking about. We just knew we were in the presence of great man, Eric's like that. And he said to me, Bruce, leisure is the new infrastructure. Oh, right, sure. And he said, look, in previous generations when we wanted to do economic development, we invested in roads and water mains and sewers and bridges, telecom, cell towers, infrastructure. He said, not anymore. Leisure is the new infrastructure. In Miami, every visitor to Miami spends $249 a day over and above food and beverage and accommodation. Okay, I said, well, okay, that's interesting. And then I thought about, and then I was going to give a speech kind of like this, and there's my old Saab, and I stopped at Sandy's Deli. This is a This is a Petro-Canada station that's been repurposed for sandwiches and coffee. So you can see it has a little bit of picnic tables outside. And I said, okay, leisure is the new infrastructure. Right, what does that mean? Well, I wandered around, and I saw this amazing amount of asphalt. And before I came in here to do this keynote for you, I wandered around Valhalla. There's a lot of asphalt out there too. And when I was looking at this, I said, okay, leisure is the new infrastructure. What if I go and talk to the owner? I said, why don't you tear up some of this unneeded asphalt? It's not a petrol station anymore. Right, tear it up. Well, but why would I do that? That costs money. I said, yes, it does. What if you put in a couple of beach volleyball courts? Right? People who play beach volleyball, organize a ladder, right? Organize some competitions, organize some, we have a 113-day summer. Right? Use it. And those people might want coffee and donuts and sandwiches and things that you sell, right? Maybe that will make a difference. And so today, this is what Sandy's Deli looks like. Not really. That's a picture I stole from Bondi Beach. I used to live on Bondi Beach in Australia. That's the Summer Olympics. But you get what I'm saying. Every one of the projects that you look around here, I'm looking at Valhalla, I'm going to talk to the owner, right? Everywhere you go, add some leisure point. Every office building, right? Every industrial building. Leisure is the new infrastructure. It works. I'll give you an example of how important it is to have entrepreneurs come to your community and live there. A friend of mine, Joe Kowalski, runs Wilderness Tours. Anybody know Wilderness Tours in Eastern Ontario? A couple people? Not many. Okay, Wilderness Tours was started by Joe about 30 years ago. He actually came from Philadelphia. He had served his military service, honorably discharged. He came north. He loved Algonquin Park. And he was going to guide canoe trips there. And he and Robbie Rosenberger were set up a little outfitting business. And they said, if you need a guided canoe trip in Algonquin Park, we're your men. Nobody wants a guided trip to Algonquin. So at the end of the summer, Robbie and Joe were discouraged. They made no money. They were poor young students or former students. And their parents wanted them to come back to Philadelphia and get real jobs. But Joe heard that there's some amazing water on the Ottawa River, Force4 Rapids, and he went and looked. And sure enough, there was. So the next summer, Joe and Robbie came back with 2 rafts. And they asked the farmer upstream, hey, for $100, can we send in here? And another farmer downstream, for $100, can we take out here? And 3,000 people showed up to experience white water. Right? Now, how important is that? Well, I wanted to show you this slide first so that you understand. I notice I have a grammatical mistake or spelling mistake on it, so I apologize. But you already know this, but part of my job today is to convey to you the entrepreneurial mind so that when entrepreneurs come to you, you don't say, we have concerns. That's the word, those are the words that no entrepreneur wants to hear out of the mouths of you or your staff. They want to hear you say, we have solutions to concerns. Okay? Because entrepreneurs would rather ask for forgiveness than beg for permission. Okay? That is the nature. Because if Joe had asked Quebec and Ontario and Canada and the local village, Beachburg, for permission, he would still be waiting for a decision today. Okay? So that's not what we do as entrepreneurs. Now, what impact does a man like Kowalski, he lives in Beachburg, he doesn't live in Philadelphia, he lives there. What impact does it have? So it's not Michael Dell in Austin saying, hey, we don't need those towers in Ottawa, too bad, so sad. Right? He lives in, Beachburg has a population of 900. Wilderness Tours, which has developed into a small town of its own, has a population of 3,500 people every weekend in summer. What impact does that have on a small town or village like Beachburg? An amazing impact. I love this story. Anybody been to Coombs, BC? Okay, one. Okay, you probably have heard about it. It's considered, what's that?
Goats on the roof.
There you go, goats on the roof. It's considered the weirdest places in Canada. It's also one of the top tourist attractions. And Coombs, BC is like 44 kilometers northwest of Nanaimo. So anybody in this room, I don't care how remote you are, you're not necessarily more remote than Coombs. Population 1,327. It's got one of the top tourist attractions in BC. How is that possible? Because they graze, those are not statues, those are real goats on the roof. It's actually called the Old Country Market, but everybody knows it as goats on the roof. Look at these numbers. Just absorb these numbers for a minute. And don't forget, all the stuff that I'm showing, these are sustainable, nothing's sustainable unless it's economically sustainable. And these have been sustained, this started in the 1950s, okay? Wilderness tours 30 years ago, so they're sustainable. It employs 250 people in summer. 250 people, 100 to 150 people in winter. I know, I talked to the owner. And it attracts 5,000 visitors. 5,000 visitors a day. It's nothing other than a store, right? And it spurred lots of other development in the town. It was started by Christian and Solveig. Christian and Solveig are immigrant entrepreneurs from Norway who came to Coombs, BC many years ago, now in the 50s, so maybe 60 years ago now. And they brought with them the idea that the old sod roof in the old country worked. Let's do it here. And you're not going to get up on that roof, right? Back me up here, guys. You're not going to get up on the roof and start mowing it, right? That would be a little tough. So what do they do in Norway? They raise goats on it. And that's how it got started. 5,000 visitors a day, 250 jobs. That's pretty important. Now this is a graph I just pulled off the internet for you guys. The intent of this is just to show you the difference in size between the US economy and Canada and Mexico. Now, if all of us had come from Mars last night, so we came from Mars rather than Ottawa, we came from Mars, and we landed on this planet, and we said, we saw this graph, and you told me, or all of us were told, that Canada runs a travel deficit with the United States, you would have said that's impossible. You have 300 million people, the strongest, most powerful nation in the world, just a few kilometers to the south of us, and we run a travel deficit. I know because I did a consulting assignment a few years ago for Tourism Canada, and they said, yeah, we don't understand it either. I said, well, it's easy to understand. We don't do the right kind of marketing, and we don't promote ourselves the way that the Americans do. And they said, well, what do you have in mind, Bruce? And I said, well, what if we were to do something like, promote Whistler, or promote goats on the roof, or promote wilderness tours, or owl rafting, all across this country. Because what we do in terms of branding Canada is we have pictures on mainstream media of beautiful lakes and forests and mountains, of course, right? But people don't come to visit lakes and forests and mountains, not very many. They come to do something, right? And then they do everything else. And they do visit the lakes and the mountains and the forests. So I said, well, we've got to promote individual entrepreneurs across this great country so we get people to come to the Princess of Wales Theatre in Toronto. And then they'll spend the $249 a day that they do in Miami doing everything else, right? Oh, no, the government said, oh, no, we can't do that, Bruce. That would be favoring one entrepreneur over another, right? Well, what do we want to do? Do we want to spend tens and tens of millions of dollars uselessly, or do we want to have, something that actually works? Okay, here's something. One of the realtors, I also am a real estate broker. I own a 5 Century 21 franchise. One of my real estate brokers came to me about 3 weeks ago. She said, Bruce, I don't get this. I have this incredible property near Eganville. I said, okay, tell me about it. It's 177 acres. It's got 3 homes, 3 rental cottages, actually 8 RV sites, and room for many more. It's got 4,000 feet of waterfront. It's on Constant Lake, which is an incredible fishing lake. I said, wow, what is the owner asking for it? $740,000. I don't know about you. I guess they go backwards, yeah. 3 homes, and I've seen it. Beautiful homes, cottages, RV sites, room for, any entrepreneur who gets a hold of that property is going to make incredible amounts of money. I know I did the analysis for it. I showed, look, here's the capitalization rate for it, here's the internal rate of return. This is a no-brainer. Except in a whole year of work, how many offers has she had? None, not one. Right? So we need more Joe Kowalskis. We need more real estate entrepreneurs. You know, I do some mentoring and coaching. I coach real estate entrepreneurs. I coach tech entrepreneurs. About 15% of the tech companies I advise are successful 5 years out. 85% of real estate startups are successful. I like that number, that 85 number. Still, not one offer. What is wrong with this place? It's lacking in branding. You know, the people who own it are super nice people. They're elders, right? They're in their 70s, I'm getting there. Right? They're elders. They don't own a computer. So if you wanted to do a fishing expedition here with your friends, you wanted to put your, group of you wanted to go put your RVs up there, you wanted to rent one of those cottages or houses, how would you actually, they don't have a website, right? How would you find it? So when I talk about you guys teaching, preaching, and leading, that is so important. We need to embrace all the new marketing that's available. How much, let me refer back to this story, how much did it cost Ontario to change the OBC? Well, it's an order in council. It didn't cost very much. We didn't need $10 million. That is the most important, in my opinion, the most important economic development initiative that I could think of. And here it is on the paper today, right? Didn't cost anything. There's lots of things that we can do to help operator fatigue, to help ourselves that don't cost very much money. So what we're doing is we're actually rebranding this. We're going to do, I don't know if you've seen this, but there is a movement sweeping across the United States into Canada. It's called the Tiny House Movement. We're going to create a tiny house community there, and we're getting lots of traction with that. It turns renters into owners. It becomes affordable housing, even cheaper than having a double-wide trailer at McNabb Rayside. And it changes the whole economic equation for this place near Eganville. And it gives the kids a reason to return, right? So if you were a young person, you're like, Eganville, man, I can't wait to get out of here. I'm 18, I'm gone. And you can come back and you could be, say, a river guide working in Beachburg for Joe Kowalski, or you could come here and be part of a new wave of tiny house communities. There's cool stuff happening, and we've got to find ways to differentiate our communities, and this is what we're working on. I'm not going to go into details, but Kristen, I think we're going to post these slides, right? So if anybody wants to look at these slides, they will be available. When entrepreneurs come to you and say, gee, if the banks won't lend me any money, I can't get any financing, so I'm done. That is not right. No financing, no excuses. I teach a lot of entrepreneurs. I teach them self-capitalization. I'm here to talk about bootstrapping economic development, but I talk about bootstrap finance too. And the number one, sorry, that's not quite accurate. The trade credit about 2 or 3 years ago finally exceeded bank lending to entrepreneurs. So if you're starting a new construction company, you can go to Home Depot and you can get $100,000 of financing from Home Depot. It's called trade credit for 6 months interest free. That is a form of financing, right? There's all kinds of non-traditional financing available to entrepreneurs, and it is much, much bigger than bank lending. So if they say I can't get a loan from a bank, I'm not surprised, nor are you, because banks, especially Canadian banks, only lend money to people who don't need it. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about your towns and villages. Stop trying to compete with Home Depot. The local hardware store went out of business because the Home Depot opened up 10 kilometers away. Don't be thinking to yourself, we're going to have somebody reopen that shop. That shop is gone for all time. That's not sustainable economic development. And I do a lot of work with small towns and communities, not just in Canada, and not just in the United States, but I've worked in Mumbai, Colombo, Australia, New Zealand, in Greece, in the UK. So what we have to do to reanimate our main streets, what we have to do is we have to attract people to live there. Even people who will live on the main level, right? None of you want that. Your economic development people or your assessment people say, oh my gosh, don't do that, because if we get that hardware store back, he or she, they pay commercial rate tax rates. 3 times what it is for residential. If you change that to residential, we're doomed. But you're doomed because a vacant store is nothing but a danger to your community and a black hole. Allow people to live in these communities. Because it turns out we built cities better 70 and 80 years ago than we do today. This is a story that goes back about 10 years. One of my daughters, she might have been 12, maybe 13. She said, "Dad, can we move to Riverdale?" Anybody know where Riverdale is? Yeah, I didn't. That's where Archie and Veronica, Betty, and Jughead lived. And I said to my daughter, her nickname is Boo, I said, "Boo, why do you want to live in Riverdale?" And this is what she said. Now, I think the real reason she wanted to live in Riverdale was this. But I get what she's saying. Because I have to ask you this. You know, I showed you that Coombs, BC, and I'm not doing a lecture here on urban planning and urban design, although I can always come back. But the fact is that what I tell people in Crete, in all the places that I work, I ask the question, are we building our towns and our cities for cars, or are we building them for people? And I vote for people. And that means in places like Crete, you don't knock down traditional buildings. You do not. Right? If the cars and trucks have to maneuver around them, that's okay. Right? We don't knock them down. In Coombs, BC, the goats on the roof intrudes right into the right-of-way. I have a master's degree in transportation engineering, and I can tell you as a transportation traffic engineer, I would never, ever design it. But what, are we going to go into Coombs and say, "Oh, you're in the right-of-way, we have to knock you down"? That's what we do in Ontario. I know, and you know. It's a mistake. In BC, they said, "Oh, no, we're not touching it." 5,000 people a day go there, 250 jobs at stake. The cars and trucks will just have to maneuver around. They'll have to be careful, because we don't build Coombs or villages or your towns or my city for cars. I vote for people. This is Renfrew. I think the main street in Renfrew maybe is called Madawaska Boulevard. And I think that's an old photograph of Bank Street when we had streetcars before our planners decided we don't want streetcars anymore in Ottawa, which was insane. But we used to know how to design cities and towns. We don't anymore. This is what we build now. We build cities and towns and villages for cars, not for people. This is a picture of Bedford Falls in Wonderful Life. And look at that picture. Stores close to the street, pedestrians everywhere, right? People crossing, right? And the street is bounded, the public room is enclosed, right? We built better cities in the 30s than we do now. This is what we build now. Okay, all of you can vote. I want to live in Bedford Falls. Not here. And the reason for that, and I know this may not be popular with some people in this room, and the reason for that is we used to allow architects who actually know something about beauty and delight and design to design our cities. And now we have zoning codes. And when I was doing Canadian Tire Center, our planner said, "Oh, where's your double-loaded parking aisle in front of every building?" Right? So it looks like that instead of that. It's up to you. You are the leaders. You've got to say, "Look, I understand the zoning code is an important document. Our official plan is an important document. But it's not the 10 Commandments. You're not going around saying, thou shalt not kill, taking the word not out. Right? You're not changing the 10 Commandments. You can change them. It's up to you." This is my ad. Right? So if you're interested in having me speak to your audience, I like doing this. I do it now for a living. I travel all over, and I enjoy doing it. I speak on a number of different topics. This is one of them. And my business partner and I, Susan Anglin, we come to cities and towns and villages and counties all across the world, and we do these kinds of reports that we did for McNabb Braeside, and we design programs that actually friggin' work. I want to talk a little bit more about what it's like to be an entrepreneur from my perspective. Sorry about that. I'm responsible for this, for good or bad. That's my fault. It's a Canadian Tire Center where the National League team, the Ottawa Senators, play. Don't look at the young man in the middle there. That was me. You gotta remember when I founded the Ottawa Senators, I was in my 30s. I'm in my 60s now. My students look at me and say, "What happened?" None of that. Okay, this is the old and the new. I don't have a pointer here, but down on the right there, you can see my friend Frank Finnegan. He's now passed away. He was on the last Ottawa Senator team to win the Stanley Cup in 1927. He scored a goal in that, and he was a good friend of mine. So this is the old and the new. This is the picture of the first year team. That handsome young man in the middle is, in fact, me. And the good news was when we bought the team in our first year, 92, 93, first year of the modern era, because the Sens did win 9 Stanley Cups, you know. Third only to Toronto and Montreal. Montreal's number 1, Toronto's number 2. Sens are number 3. It's just been a while, that's all. So the good news was we bought this team, and when I operated it, our first year salaries for the big team and minor league affiliate was $6.5 million Canadian dollars. All right, not bad. And we made $9.6 million in earnings that year, playing the smallest or second smallest building in the National Hockey League. So we made some money. So I thought, oh my gosh, this is great. I'm such a smart person. And then what happened? Salaries took off, right? Back me up here. They went in 8 years, went from $6.5 million to $54 million. Went from Canadian to US dollars. I denominated player contracts in Canadian dollars, and then the NHL changed its policy. They all had to be in the US. And what happened to the Canadian dollar? That's what happened to it, right? That's pretty much the proportions. It went down from 90 cents to 62 cents. So our payroll went up to about 85 million. So what happened to the team? It went bankrupt, right? Because if your payroll in your municipality goes from $6.5 million to 84, 85 million Canadian dollars in 8 years, you'd probably be bankrupt too. So I became a professor. That's me in Stockholm, teaching, and a real estate broker. And I wrote some books, and I wrote some more books. They were made into a movie. And I wrote more books, which you can get here. And don't forget, it's Bruce M. Firestone. Don't forget the M, that's important. Sorry, I had to do it. Oh my God. He's killing me. So people ask me, how in the world and why in the world would you ever want to go after a National Hockey League team, Bruce? And I said, well, you know, I don't know. I was a young man. I thought, well, it's an adventure, right? Sometimes that's all it is. And I asked myself a question, what does Toronto have that Ottawa doesn't have? What does Toronto have that Ottawa doesn't have? And then they had the Princess of Wales Theatre, and that's not going to work. They have a zoo. I'm not too interested in animals. They have a National Hockey League team. Maybe we could have one in Ottawa. So I talked to my 2 key guys in the company that I owned at that time, Randy Sexton, an MBA from Clarkson, and Cyril Leader, a CA, chartered accountant. And Randy said right away, oh my God, let's do it. And Cyril was more cautious. And of course, he's the accountant, said, how much is that going to cost? And I said, I don't know, $35 million, but I was wrong. It was 50, right? And the NHL got a little greedy, right? Today it would cost probably about $400 million. So I said, I have a simple plan though. It's not just to pay $50 million. I have a simple plan. And Cyril said, Randy said, what is it? I said, let's buy 600 acres of land. And this was the plan that I eventually came up with called West Terrace. Let's buy 600 acres of land, pay $7.2 million for the land, about $12,000 an acre. Let's drive it up by $100,000. Let's keep 100 acres for ourselves in our new building, and let's sell the other 500 acres at a profit of $100,000 an acre. And that conveniently works out to $50 million. And then let's take that money, put it in a Brinks truck, and drive it down to Park Avenue and give it to the National Hockey League and said, give us a franchise. That was the plan. And we went to the regional chair in those days. This was before amalgamation. Before amalgamation of Ottawa. So Andy Heaton, I think, was regional chair. Jim Durrell was mayor of Ottawa. We went down to see him, and Des Adam, mayor of Canada. And we told them in confidence what we were doing. And we said to those 3 mayors, you have a magic wand. We want you to use it. And he said, well, what kind of magic wand? I said, I want you to go hocus pocus presto. That land is rezoned. And you'll drive up the value and we're going to make $50 million. And they said, why would we do that? Why would they ever do that? I said, because we're not going to keep that $50 million. We're going to take that down to the New York. We're going to give it to the National Hockey League and get a franchise for Ottawa. So the next time you're in a cab in Chicago and you say you're from Ottawa, they say, oh, is that like near Montreal or Toronto? Because that's what we got. Nobody knew where Ottawa was. Nobody. Now when you go, certainly in the first few years, excuse me, I have a bit of a cold. In the first few years after we got the hockey team, I would be in a cab somewhere and say from Ottawa, oh, you got that losing team up there. I got that a lot. In our first year, I think we lost 70 games. Think about that, 70. It took us 20 years to climb to 500. But, like all plans, somewhere, something went wrong. Anybody remember this guy? Some of you are old enough to remember him. Who's this? It's Bob Ray. My friend David Peterson, who was the head of the Liberal Party of Ontario and the Premier of the province of Ontario, called an election 2.5 years early. Called an election 2.5 years. No Premier has ever done that. No Premier has ever done that. David, in his infinite wisdom, did, and the votes broke just perfectly. So thank you. Broke just perfectly so that Mr. Ray woke up and he was Premier with majority. And he wrote me a letter saying, you know, Bruce, that promise from Ontario that we were going to help you with that interchange. We have an interchange in Ottawa, still to this day, the only privately funded interchange in Ontario history on a 400 series highway. We built that, we paid for it. Well, we're not going to do that. No, the budget's tight. Even though the government of Ontario had a binding agreement with my company, Mr. Ray said, oh, we're not going to do that. And you know how we were supporting your rezoning, which went through 26-0 at Regional Council in Ottawa. You can't get a unanimous vote in Ottawa for anything. We got a unanimous vote for that. You remember how Ontario was supportive of that? Well, we're going to oppose the rezoning with every ounce of force the Ontario government can muster. Just wanted you to know. Here's very truly Bob Ray. And the reason he did that was, Mr. Ray, we were competing in those days for a franchise with a few other cities. St. Petersburg, Tampa, Milwaukee, Seattle, Houston, Portland, and Hamilton. And Mr. Ray and his Hamilton caucus wanted the team to go to Hamilton, so they said the fastest way to derail those boys in Ottawa is kill the lady, what's now Canadian Tires. But you know, one thing I wanted you to know about entrepreneurs is entrepreneurs are crazy. You probably already concluded that, right? Right. They believe unreasonably in what they're doing. And I want you to understand that. Because what I want you to do is to look in every one of your communities, and you're going to find you have an amazing number of entrepreneurs with home-based businesses and other kinds of cool stuff that's happening you don't know about. And you're going to register them all on Google Plus, right? And Google Maps, right? Every one of you. It's free. It costs you nothing. I want you to harness the power of those entrepreneurs, because that's going to face down the crisis as people die off. And it's going to bring those young entrepreneurs back to your community. So, I'm just going to tell you a story, and then I'm almost done. Okay, Kristen? We're good? Just a few more minutes, and then I guess lunch is next, Kristen? Okay, so we're almost done, but I just finished the story, okay? The night before we got the franchise, we were at a nice dinner of the NHL family like this in Palm Beach. About 500 people were there, maybe 600 people. And, you know, there were a lot of teams that were lobbying there for, a lot of cities were lobbying. Ottawa, obviously, we had 120 people down there. Myself, obviously, 119 others. And people were lobbying, and it was, you know, vote for me, vote for me, vote for me. One of the members of the Board of Governors of the National Hockey League came up to me. He stood very close to me. You know, we don't like that when people come in our personal space. And he said, Mr. Parson, I want to tell you one thing. I said, yes, sir. I'm all ears. Just one thing. You will never, ever, ever get our franchise in Ottawa. We had spent 4 years of my life, $10 or $12 million on the bid. And here's a voter the night before they're going to vote telling you that. There were 150,000 people in Ottawa running to their radios every hour for an update. How's the bid doing? We had sold 15,000 season tickets in Ottawa for a team that didn't exist. Remember I talked about bootstrap financing? $22 million in cash sitting in a trust account. 500 corporate sponsors had signed up and given us money for free just to be associated with the bid. Now that's pressure. I'm thinking if I don't get this team tomorrow, I'm not going back home. I'm going back to Sydney. So I said to him, sir, I'm sorry you feel that way. I just want you to know that I think you should reconsider, because I believe the NHL should give franchises to cities and towns, people who love the National League, like we do in Canada, and it should be Ottawa. And I believe, just to tell you, that we should have franchises in Hamilton and in Quebec City. I am supportive of that today. But he said, no, I'm not reconsidering, I just wanted you to know. I went, well, okay. So I went and sat down with my group. Everybody came over to me and said, Bruce, is everything okay? I said, oh, yeah. You know how when you're stressed, your voice goes up a couple of octaves? Oh, yeah, everything's good, man. I'm fine. And then Norm Green, who owned the Minnesota North Stars, now the Dallas Stars, came over and said, Bruce, what's the matter? Everybody's still working the room. You're just sitting there. I said, yeah. What's wrong? Oh, no, everything's okay. So I tried to tell Norm, and Norm said, look, maybe that's one vote you aren't going to get. But there's 20 others. In those days, there were 21 National Hockey League teams. Now they're 30. So that's a vote you're not going to get. There's others you've got to go and get. So get that schmucky look off your face, get out there and hustle. I had been called a schmucky kid for a while, I think. I said, well, by golly, Norm is right. So we kept going. The next morning I get up, because I'm an entrepreneur, I'm up early. You would know that, Kristen. Getting texts from me at 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning. So we get up and I go down to have breakfast in the Board of Governors room, or the breakfast room, at this horrible hotel called The Breakers. Looks like the Overlook Hotel in The Shining. You know what I'm talking about? You're expecting Jack Nicholson? Yeah. So I'm there and I'm talking to the owners, and they all are, I'm there. And the only other guy I see in the room with me is Phil Esposito, representing the Tampa Bay Lightning, what became the Tampa Bay Lightning. I said, where's Portland? Where's St. Petersburg? Where's Hamilton? Nobody was there. I said, this is great. So they started their Board of Governors meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning, and practically the last thing they had to do is close the door on my big nose. And I was saying, remember Ottawa. No, go Ottawa. I had lots of people there with me. Phil was there too, saying, tap it. And, the pressure mounts. There's a lot of pressure in those situations. And so, around noon, I said, I can't take the pressure. I'm going for a run. I like to run. I jog now, barely. And so I said, I'm going for a run. So I went for a run on the beach. And around 10 to 1, I'm coming back. Staff are outside looking for me, and they wave me onto the front door of the Breakers Hotel, and they say, the NHL's made a decision. I said, oh, okay, what decision? We don't know, we have to be up in our suite at 1. So at 1 o'clock, we're there, didn't have time for a shower, I just had a towel off, changing my suit. And NHL security comes and takes us and my guys down to the basement of the Breakers Hotel. If you're down there, there's the prep kitchen and the potato peelings, and the pipes are dripping on you. I go, oh my gosh. So I look at Jim Durrell, the mayor, and Elliot Richardson, our lawyer, former Attorney General of the United States, and others, Cyril and Randy, and a few others were there. I said, wow, doesn't look like we've been successful, guys. But, in true Canadian style, if we were not successful today, we're going to go up. We're going to thank the NHL that they gave us this opportunity. We're going to congratulate the winners. Then we're going to have our own press conference, and we're going to announce today we'll be back, because we're not taking over now. So with that, we're ready for the worst. So we go upstairs finally, and what we didn't realize is that the losers were upstairs where the media could get at them, and the winners were hidden in the basement. We didn't know that. It just didn't occur to me. So we go up into the Board of Governors room, nice room, the Breakers, and Marcel Lebeau, who owned the Nordiques, Quebec Nordiques in the day, comes up to me and says, this big guy, félicitations, mon ami, and he gives me a big hug. I go, oh, great. Because I think he's congratulating me for a good try. And then I go up to the front of the room, there's Phil Esposito, there's the president of the National Hockey League and me. And I look down, there's a piece of paper that says, the NHL is pleased and proud today to announce conditional franchises have been granted to the cities of Ottawa and Tampa. And I said, oh my God, we just won this. And Randy, who's not a real big guy, he had a 30-inch vertical that day. I even jumped. Some of us were a little teary-eyed, it might have been me. And, you know, I thought, wow, we just won this thing. And then a few minutes later, this photo was taken. And that was the moment, it was a great moment for all of us in Ottawa, in Canada. I asked John Ziegler, who's the president of the National Hockey League, I said, John, what was the vote? And he said, well, it was unanimous, 21-0 for Ottawa. I said, really? Oh my God, I got that vote. That's awesome. And about 3 weeks later, when I'm back home in Ottawa, fighting my provincial government. Oh, by the way, Phil Esposito called me a couple of days after he got back home. He said, I got this great call from the governor of the state of Florida congratulating you. How'd it go when you got back? And I said, I got a lawsuit. That's a true story. I was on the stand for 3.5 days while the Perry Basin of O&B lawyers cross-examined. Hired by the province, best O&B lawyer they could find. Anyway, 3 weeks later, I get this call from this board of governors, member of the board of governors, saying, Bruce, do you remember that, you know, that kind of conversation we had the night before you got the team? I said, I do. I think I'll remember that for a long time. You know, I just wanted you to know that me and a bunch of the guys from the board of governors got together, and we decided to say that to everybody. We said, you will never, ever, ever get a franchise in, fill in the name of the city. Milwaukee, Portland, Seattle, Houston, Ottawa. Because we wanted to see who would quit. And only two who did were you and Phil. And those are the people we gave our franchises to. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Bruce M. Firestone. You've given us some great messages here today, and certainly an appreciation for your presentation at the 2014 Northwestern Ontario Regional Conference. A donation has been named in your name to the Regional Food Distribution Association. And just so you know, I did wear my Leaf shirt today. And I do want to thank Bruce for a couple of things. He certainly taught me a lesson today, and that is Toronto Maple Leaf fans are entrepreneurs, because we never give up. And I also want to thank Bruce for making sure we had at least one pro hockey team in Ontario. Thank you. Enjoy your lunch.